Good evening. This evening, I welcome you to the first of a series of panel discussions regarding women and race. I am Erica McGowan, the grant writer and facilitator for Girl, Let's Talk. On behalf of the Carbondale Branch NAACP, this presentation has been made possible through a grant from the Southern Illinois Community Foundation in conjunction with the Chicago Community Trust. The Southern Illinois Healing Grant has been established to promote understanding, trust, relationships, and unity in the Southern Illinois community and beyond. The goal of Girl, Let's Talk is to promote and create this understanding and empathy between white women and women of color or Black women. So, on tonight, our panelists for this evening are Ms. Yolanda Dean, known as Ms. Yolanda. She was born and raised in the inner city limits of Chicago, Illinois. She received her bachelor's degree from Southeast Missouri State University in Cape Girardeau and received both of her master's degrees from Southern Illinois University at Carbondale. She has been a senior lecturer at SIUC for over 15 years. Everyone welcome Yolanda Dean. Our next panelist is Nancy Maxwell. Nancy has been both a rape crisis medical, legal advocate, and rape crisis counselor at the Women's Center for almost 10 years. She ran the Women's Empowerment Group at the Irma C. Hayes Center in Carbondale, Illinois for many years with few resources. Nancy has been fighting for social justice for over a decade in Southern Illinois. In 2020, Nancy was a recipient of WSIU's Neighborly Award and the Centerstone Community Champion Award. She was the first Black female officer in Mounds, Illinois, and is currently the Criminal Justice Chair for the Carbondale NAACP branch. Director also of Carbondale United, which she founded, and a founding member of the Southern Illinois Unity Coalition. Everyone welcome Ms. Nancy Maxwell tonight. Our next panelist is Emerald McGowan. Born in Chicago, Illinois, raised in Carbondale, Emerald is the 31-year-old mother to her son that is affectionately called Bo Miles. An award-winning activist in her community, she is the co-founder of the Southern Illinois Unity Coalition organization. Emerald is also a recent graduate of the Kaskaskia College Nail Tech program. She is dedicated to beautifying the world through her music, podcasts, and the beauty industry. She is striving to use these gifts to touch the world. Everyone welcome Miss Emerald Avril McGowan. Our next panelist is Alessandra Nicholson. Alessandra was born and raised in Carbondale, Illinois, where she began her career in healthcare by becoming a sterile processing technician. After advancing her career as a supervisor, she began traveling across the country and building a career in SPD management. With 14 years in the field, she has worked in a wide range of corporate healthcare settings, ranging from private and public Catholic-based facilities. She currently works for UMass Healthcare in Boston and has recently started a healthcare consuming agency, Candre Institute of SPD, and will be opening a sterile processing training facility here in Carbondale to advance African Americans within the healthcare industry. Everyone, please give a warm welcome to Alessandra Nicholson. Okay, those are our panelists. And in addition, we have one more person joining us this evening. In observation and on standby is licensed professional clinical counselor Pam or Pamela K. Williams, of the Hope and Healing Center in the Chicagoland area. As a licensed clinical professional counselor with 23 years of experience in the behavioral health field, she earned her master's degree at Southern Illinois University, Carbondale. She's worked as an assessor counselor, family therapist, manager, and director at a variety of different agencies across the Chicagoland area. She specializes in trauma, anxiety, depression, and addiction counseling. She is the sole owner of the Hope and Healing Center. She's truly compassionate about assisting people with addressing their issues and reaching a level of individualized stability. Please welcome to our panel and our assistants, Ms. Pamela K. Williams tonight. All right, okay. Now that I have introduced all these beautiful Black women on this evening so that we can facilitate this discussion and hopefully have a breakthrough. Tonight's discussion is based on the much debated statement of Sojourner Truth. I contend that it was much debated because it's been questioned whether she actually made that statement while asking, "Ain't I a woman?" However, within the context of her speech, she states, "That man over there says that women need to be helped into carriages and lifted over ditches and to have the best place everywhere. Nobody ever helps me into carriages or over mud puddles or gives me any best place. And ain't I a woman? Look at me. Look at my arm. I have plowed and planted and gathered into barns, and no man could beat me. And ain't I a woman?" she asked again. "I could work as much and eat as much as a man when I could get it and bear the lash as well. And ain't I a woman? I have borne 13 children and seen most all sold off to slavery. And when I cried out with my mother's grief, none but Jesus heard me." And she finally asked again, "Ain't I a woman?" Born in 1797 in New York, a former slave and activist who fought for racial and gender equality before, during, and after the Civil War, Sojourner Truth majorly contributed to the women's suffrage movement. Upon consideration of topics for tonight, her statement prompted the following two-part session for tonight's discussion. The first session is From Whence We Came, and the second is A Tangled Mess. To begin, Black women in predominantly white communities often go unheard. On a daily basis, common microaggressions, politics at work, interactions, while out in the world, and many other instances fuel the issue of race and gender. Efforts and rights are many times overlooked. Black women personally do not have to be validated by society, but certainly must be heard and taken seriously. Because of these things, Black women have been forced to carve out a place for themselves and to create their own spaces. Black women are creators, thinkers, doers, strivers. Much like Shaka Khan's 1978 hit, "Give it to the Black women and it will be done," because she is indeed every woman. On the issue of relationships and community, one of the things that I see is that it can be difficult to genuinely be friends with white women because there is often mistrust. Becoming friends with others outside of our own culture because of history and the actions that fostered slavery, along with the continuation of oppression in Black communities across the United States, it makes it hard to foster a kind of friendship that is genuine, good on both sides, and healthy. In order for these kinds of relationships to exist, the question begs, can this kind of friendship be nurtured, sustained, and grow? There's nothing worse than feeling comfortable with someone and then discovering that certain views are held underneath it all. Maybe it's the family they come from. Perhaps it's an implicit bias that hasn't been expressed, or perhaps they can't understand the big commotion about race because they don't see color. That's a common thing that is often said, unfortunately. So for tonight, a question and answer box has been provided. At the end of the discussion questions, you will be able to reach out with questions to our panelists at that time, and I will let you know, the audience, when you can do so. So as we begin, from whence we came. So we are aware that the continent of Africa has a very rich and awe-inspiring past, a history that boasts magnificent empires and various cultures that have made a lasting mark upon our world. In stark contrast, slavery existed over 400 years. And during this time, Black women have carried not only the Black community, but also the white community. We nursed babies, worked in fields, tended to the kitchen, bared the lash of the whip, endured rape and molestation, had our children taken away from us, and in general went through things that even the most grounded person could not come through unscathed. While slavery doesn't adequately speak to who and what Black women are, its roots have caused an undeniable impact upon the lives of Black women. And this is, I'm going to stop right here to say, this is not to say that our Black brothers have not endured anything. They have too. But on tonight, as a Black women and us as a panel addressing all of this, where our focus is on Black womanhood. In the context of our current world, this discussion is important because it gives additional voice or voices to the very important issue of Black women and racial inequality. Okay, panelists, I am going to begin with my questions. I'm going to call you randomly, and the rest of you will have an opportunity to comment if you'd like to do so, but I would like to limit it to maybe only 3 comments on each question, and then we'll have discussion. The first question, I want to fill this out to one of our younger sisters. We're going to begin with Emerald. How are you feeling about what's happening in the world?
In regards to race?
Yes, in regards to being a Black woman and race and relationships.
I pretty much feel the same way I've always felt. I feel like race is an issue of the heart, or racism, excuse me, is an issue of the heart. And so until people work on themselves, try to be more empathetic, more loving, understanding, etc., it's always kind of going to be around. I don't personally feel like anything has changed. Of course, as a race, we've progressed from where we came from, no pun intended. But I just feel like there's a lot of wrongs that need to be corrected for both sides to progress in a healthy direction, if that makes sense.
It does, and thank you. Does anyone else, or would anyone else like to comment on the question about how you're feeling about what's happening in the world right now with regard to race and being a Black woman?
I can respond to that. I am feeling okay. I'm feeling okay because the motto from the military, don't ask, don't tell, has seeped into our society for quite a while, a long time. So for a little while, it felt like things were okay. But within the last 4 or 5 years, a lot have come out, a lot. And people feel more free now to exercise things that I don't think they were as free to exercise before that time period. And so now that they're exercising that, we're finally getting to the point where we can deal with some things. And so now we're realizing that it's not enough just to protest. It's not enough just to march. Now we need to hold offices. Now we need to strive for higher positions so that we can conduct change. And so because of that, I'm okay.
Excellent, excellent. Does anyone else have any input on this question or this thought? Thank you, Ms. Dean.
Hi, it's Alessandra. I agree with what Yolanda said, that I think because we are now seeing more openness from folks as far as sharing their displeasure with having to be around Black people, having to deal with Black people. I think in the past, we saw civil rights kind of tamp that down to where it wasn't okay to be so flagrantly racist. And it kind of went underground for a while. And as a Black community, it was always present for us, but for the world, it was very hidden. And so the last few years as a political climate, we've seen it kind of come back onto the mainstream where the violence is very obvious to all parties. And so it's an opportunity to have conversations with allies in a way that we've never been able to have before. And also to have conversations within the Black community about the threats that we face on a daily basis that we had normalized.
Thank you, Alessandra. So, Nancy, from your perspective of who you are and your experiences, when did you first become aware of your race?
That is a very good question. And it was always there, but it wasn't like obvious. Like my mother cleaned houses for white women, and we got the leftover toys that they were gonna throw out. And to me, at that time, it seemed like a good thing because I'm getting this toy that I always wanted. My mom couldn't afford to get it. But I would say it wasn't till later on in life, or maybe like my later teens, that I realized that that wasn't a good thing that my mother had to work in somebody's house cleaning up. And then we got the leftover clothes and toys. And different things happened in my life that made me become aware that I'm different, that being Black is different. And you know what? I can't even say late teens because I was at school once, and the only person that they teach us about is Martin Luther King. And so I wasn't paying attention to what the lady was talking about because at the end of it, you were supposed to tell something about Martin Luther King. So I already had what I was going to say together already. And so when it came up to my turn, she was like, Nancy, so what can you tell us about Martin Luther King? I'm like, he's my cousin, right? And they sent me to the office, and they called my mother up to the school. For me, they thought I was being funny and that I was lying. And they wasn't expecting my mother to come up there and say, so you don't think that Martin Luther King got relatives? Like, he is kin to us. Thank you very much. And I don't appreciate how you treated my daughter when doing that. I can think back now, I wonder if I would have been white and said, you know, Marcus Gar, I mean, not Marcus Gar, but somebody white was my relative, would they have been so upset and sent me to the office and I'm about to get rolled up and everything? So that's kind of like one of the examples I can think of that it was there, but it wasn't prominent. It was like living in a glass bubble until Trayvon Martin died. And then it was like, oh, okay. I have been blind, but now I see, because I missed it some kind of way. You know, going to school with all Black kids and a majority of Black teachers, it wasn't that obvious. But as time went on, I think like we got to sit on the bus and we got to lay back and kind of like the young lady said, we kind of let it go and went on with life. Like, we got this, we got the bus, we can go sit in the restaurant. We kind of okay, but we wasn't okay. And things like this had been happening, but there was no way to document it. So when the cell phone and internet came out, you became more aware of how the systemic racism is still there. And when Trump got president, you found out that some of the people you thought wasn't racist is racist. They just been in the closet. And so when he came out, some of the bones fell out and we like, whoa, okay. So now I know how you feel. So I kind of think that's when I kind of like it was there, but it wasn't so prominent until later on in life.
So your epiphany came later on in life. Does anybody else, thank you, Nancy, want to share from your perspective who you are and your experiences and when you were first aware of your race?
Well, I will share with you. My mom was a young mom. And so, I mean, my father was young as well. And so we would have very, very real conversations. She didn't do the kitty talk with me ever. And so one year I just asked her, I was in elementary school, and I was like, why do I have to travel so far to go to school? There are schools in our community and nobody in my school looks like me. What is this? And her response, I mean, she didn't miss a beat. She didn't get upset. She just simply said, I send you to this school because they're not going to miseducate their own kids just for the sole purpose of miseducating you. And I didn't understand what she meant until I got older and got into college. And I was like, wow, this is real. And so for me, that was part of when I started to realize that things were different. The kids I went to school with, I didn't look like, and the kids in my neighborhood didn't go to school with me. So it was a big difference for me in that perspective.
Thank you, Ms. Yolanda. Thank you. Anyone else? I think our clinical therapist, I will call her, would like to add something to this conversation.
Thank you. I have a very interesting upbringing anyway, but my first experience was watching Sesame Street and asking my parents why I look like this African-American boy on Sesame Street, and they don't look like him. And them having to explain, but then also having an experience where my mother's mother, my grandmother, who didn't speak to my parents for 2 years for adopting a 2 Black child. They should have adopted a child who could pass, and it was very uncomfortable around her. And there was a lot of discomfort in terms of conversations between my parents and my grandparents. But it just heightened the awareness that something might be different about my complexion, about my skin, about who I am. And I didn't keep quiet about it. My parents, I think, did a great job highlighting how beautiful my dark is. And so I didn't have issues with my complexion, but it still bothered me that I was too dark to have the kind of love a grandmother should be giving a grandchild. But I got it from my paternal side. So I just wanted to add that small tidbit. Thank you for including me.
Oh, no problem. Thank you, Pam. Everyone is, on here so that we could, talk about all of this. And I certainly am very appreciative of your support and presence. Thank you. Okay, so the next question is, well, I think we've kind of answered that, because it's like, what do you remember from your childhood about you that made sense of human differences? So in other words, you recognize it, you became aware of it, or recognized it and became aware of it. But is there anything in your consciousness from being a child that allowed you to process that and make sense of the thought that we are different from everyone?
So I had an experience in childhood. As you can see, I have a head full of hair, and I've always had a
Beautiful
head full
hair.
of hair, even from when I was little.
Mhm.
But again, I went to school with little Caucasian girls whose hair went all the way down to their bottoms. And so when I was younger, the style at that time was the two pigtails that they would braid down and then loop the hair back up in a ponytail so it hung like a little bell. And I remember asking my mom, like, hey, can you do my hair like that? And she proceeded to, explain to me that my hair was not long enough for that. And it wasn't going to do that anyway. It'll look good for a minute and then it'll be all poofy again. So to let it go.
Mhm.
But in school, and again, this was elementary school, I was talking to some little girls about it. And we was just talking about hair. And one of the little girls was like, well, when you wash your hair, what does it do? And I was like, when I wash my hair, what do you mean? And so anyway, in the conversation, it came up that I don't wash my hair every day. And the little girl didn't know any better, but she called me dirty. And so that started an altercation. And so, of course, we had to go to the principal's office and have a conversation about how we were different and that it was okay that we were different. But that was very early on, and it was a great impact.
Would you say that, or I think I want to more appropriately ask you, you're saying it was a great impact. How long did that stay with you? And when were you able to feel like you didn't have to care about any of that, but that you could just, be yourself and live comfortably in your skin with your own hair? And, by the way, you have long, beautiful hair, so.
I do, thank you. Well, it was twofold for me, because I did get in serious trouble when I got home, because you're not supposed to get in trouble at school.
Right.
But part of it was I was upset about what she said, but I was also upset about how I reacted to what she said, because I didn't have to hit her. It took me a while to learn that regardless of what people say to me, I'm always in control of how I respond to it. And that sometimes people will say things to me intentional to be hurtful, just to get me to respond the way that they want me to respond. And I am not to allow people to have that much control over me. So because my parents were my father especially was very militant, it was like, oh, okay, we're gonna work this out. So, my father was militant, but my mother was like, you're gonna speak up for yourself, and you ain't gotta touch nobody, but let them know where they can go and how they can get there. And so it took me a while to balance that out.
Okay. Anyone else have anything significant that, you know, happened in their childhood that affected them, you know, and their self-esteem, you know, as far as being a person of African descent. Anyone else?
Yes. I had a few incidents in school and with my teachers that made me uncomfortable and made me question, you know, am I safe with the adults? Am I safe with figures of authority? Some things, you know, like what Yolanda said, kids being kids didn't know better. But you, especially when you're in a school setting, you're expecting that your teachers are going to be there to hold the line, if you will. So like there were times like even in high school where we would be studying slavery, and I've had other students, other peers ask if I had slave memorabilia, you know, if we still had, you know, chains from that time, and just things that I think they didn't mean it, you know, as harshly as it is, but at the same time, the teacher is there to kind of give that guidance. And when the conversations would come up, mostly it was a okay, everybody, like, you're taking it too far. Let's just calm down, rather than take an opportunity to explain to them what was wrong with the statement, why it was wrong. But even periods where you would try to express your own autonomy, like I refused to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance pretty much throughout my entire school career.
Mm-hmm.
So it only really became a big deal when I got into middle school, and we had certain teachers that they wanted you to stand up at the beginning of the hour, and I would refuse. And so sometimes you would get this backlash or retaliation, where maybe you had to immediately go to the office, or maybe they would then say, okay, well, there's a pop quiz. And what I found is that anytime you beat the metric, you got further punishment. So if that teacher dropped the pop quiz and you got all the answers right, well, now they got to up the ante because you didn't actually, you know, get any punishment out of it. And the last one that escalated for me was in middle school, where we had taken a trip to a baseball game, and I didn't stand up, like I never did. And I had a teacher, after the pledge was completed, all the students got up to go get snacks, and she physically held me down in my seat so that I wouldn't go get snacks. And luckily that time I had a principal that immediately saw that, came over, diffused the situation, let her know she was completely out of line for touching me and for the Pledge of Allegiance situation. But he took it a step further in explaining to her why it may be that I had a problem with standing up for the pledge. So that was really the first time that I had a teacher really take it to the end of the line to say, not only is it inappropriate for you to have an issue with her having a problem with this, but here's why she might not want to stand, and it's okay. So I think I've carried that as an adult, that I need to be hypervigilant, even when I'm dealing with people in positions of authority that may are supposed to understand what's happening. I'm still maybe in a situation where I'm forced to defend myself or support myself or educate the people around me.
Thank you. So I'm going to step out of my role as facilitator for just one moment and say to my daughter, Emerald, who is on with us, she had the very same thing, minus the holding down of her happen. And at the time, although I have always been very aware of my history, at the time I was like, oh no, Emerald, just go on ahead and say the pledge and just, you know, don't worry about all of that, blah, 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 blah. But as time has passed, I am going to again offer her my deepest apology, because no, that's the way that she felt. And so to validate that, especially as an African-American mother, you know, although she knows that I have always championed, you know, and stood for what is right, that was one time where I should have said no. So here we go. All right. Are there any other thoughts or opinions that you want to talk about together as a panel group right now that pertain to where we come from and who we are?
I just want to say, you've already apologized to me in person, so thank you. Whatever. But I just want to go back to the first time that I spoke, because I really, I've been kind of in my own zone, doing other things today. So I really didn't have time to mentally get in the mindset of this type of conversation. But I said what I said to say. Now that we talked about childhood and I didn't comment, I've always been an activist. At the root of me, I've always been very passionate about my people. I've always been aware, because that's how my parents raised me, to be aware that I'm Black, that Black is beautiful, we're amazing people, et cetera, et cetera. I'm actually a very optimistic, positive person. But when it comes to the topic of race, I don't sugarcoat anything. I feel like a lot of excuses have been made for white people throughout history. Just the fact that it's like, oh, yay, we've gotten somewhere because now we have it on camera. But how many convictions have we gotten? How many arrests? Forget evictions. How many officers or random white vigilantes have been arrested for violating Black people? Not a lot, you know? So I just feel like, in that same vein that you speak of, the time period between the Civil Rights Movement and Trayvon Martin, we can't forget that we had the Black Panther Party. We had Kwanzaa be created in the 80s or the 90s. We had a lot of stuff that as Black people we tried to do, but the government itself shut it down through various ways. And I won't get into a history lesson unless you guys want me to. But that's why, from my standpoint, I just want you all, because you're on the panel with me and whoever else is listening or watching, to just remember that we really have not come that far. We have some Black elites, but we've always had Black elites. We've always had Black celebrities. We've always had rich Black people. We had Black people that owned slaves. But that doesn't mean that much has changed, because, like I said in the beginning, I really feel like it hasn't. So yes, in middle school, I was super militant. That's about the time I started watching a whole bunch of documentaries and speeches and movies, whatever. And I did not want to stand it, even though I stood just out of respect for my parents. I didn't end up saying that, I didn't recite it. So, I mean, I wish she would have stood by me. We could have been rich, but but that's all I want to say. You know, I just wanted to further explain what I had to say, because, hey, in a perfect world, sure, we're getting somewhere, but in reality, in my opinion, that's based on history and knowledge, I really feel like we haven't. I feel like, you know, as a race, we're very apathetic. Like, you saw the people come out for George Floyd, but I really feel like that was more so connected to the pandemic and people wanting to be outside and having nothing else to do. I feel like as a race, it's our responsibility to lift ourselves up. It's our responsibility to lift up people in the hood. It's their responsibility to actually care about the situation that they're in. It's our responsibility to stop drinking and doing drugs every day, et cetera, et cetera. So we can talk about race and we can talk about how we've been wrong, but some of the stuff that we're struggling from as a race, we can correct ourselves. So that's all I want to say right now.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Emerald. Is there anyone else? So, Ms. Pam, what can you offer us, as we have discussed, you know, the issue of who we are in the world, what we feel about the world around us, and ways in which we can embrace who we are? Because different ones of us are at different places. And what I've discovered is that some of us really don't have an accurate or a, for lack of a better word, good, such a regular basic term, but good outlook or opinion of ourselves and the things that we can do. So, what would you offer to us?
Well, if we were all in the room, I would start with a hug.
Okay.
I just think that there's a missing component in terms of our collective body of people offering each other care, concern, and comfort. We have others, people of other ethnicities and races that are afraid of us, but I feel like some of us are afraid of us, and we need to do more self-love and love towards others and bring about more unity, collectivity, rather than competition,
Mm-hmm.
Also recognizing that we need to care for ourselves, eating right and exercising, endurance. I mean, you can't help anybody else if you don't work on yourself. That's a huge component.
Yes.
Stop being complicit and just turning a blind eye to what's happening in our communities or across the nation to one another.
Mm-hmm.
Seeking help, it's a sign of strength, not a sign of weakness. We often stay in denial about people needing outside help or resources or support of any kind. We need to get away from that as well. And even if it's pastoral counseling or psychological help, whatever it might be, we need to seek it. And we need to encourage the people we love and care about to seek it as well. And I think just using more positive affirmations to describe ourselves and each other. I was appalled at some of the comments about our Sha'Carri Richardson's hair. Who cares about her hair? That girl can run. She's on fire. Let the girl be who she is, with orange hair and all. Her essence and her beauty it's an individualized expression. And why can't she? And that it's that kind of things. We're just so quick to be mental sometimes and to browbeat each other. Let's look at the beauty and point that out. Help a sister adjust her crown.
Yes. So we can sit high and tall.
And I think I heard the word advocating and educating ourselves is something really helpful as well. Aside from just historical things, what about the new things that are going on? Learning more, not being afraid to gather up, information on various ways, sitting on panels, town hall meetings, being a part of this. It's all a start, and it's a helpful segue into change.
Yes. Thank you so much for that. I think many of us needed to hear that. So we're going to move forward with the second session, entitled A Tangled Mess. A tangled mess. So this is the place where we find ourselves in the midst of all that has happened, and how to a certain extent we have really overcome. Although things are the same in many areas, we have made advancements. So let's see, who haven't I called on? All of you, although, have been commenting. So I'm going to put this question out here, and you can step forward to answer it. How have external factors influenced you in a positive or negative way? Like when we think about people, each other people, and this is again like an open letter to our white sisters so that they can understand us a little bit better. So people, material things, the media, that's a big one. The media, and all other kinds of facets that happen in our lives. How have these external factors influenced your thinking when it comes to being a Black woman in the world today?
I'll answer that first.
Okay.
So jump to answer it. So I've had it from both ends. I always, it's weird because you're the host, but I've always had parents that showed me a lot of love, educated me a lot, as well as my other siblings, and really just instilled in us that Black was beautiful. And so I never really wavered from that, so to speak. But I just feel like growing up and becoming an adult, it's been a little bit of a rude awakening, even though I've always been educated and well aware of the world. I just feel like Black women, we're treated like we're at the lowest end of the totem pole, just to be quite frank. I mean, you got to deal with white women who typically we don't mix with well for whatever reason. It's always some type of like competitive nature in between. And so that's led to me having problems in the workplace. I could be minding my business and I'm getting reported for what I wear, in an office full of white people. So, I mean, that hasn't been fun. But on the other end, the media, more so because of the explosion of social media and like Black people having blogs and things of that nature, the natural hair movement has been very encouraging to me, because even though I have a weave right now, it's helped me embrace my hair, because I didn't have like, the 3B curly perfect hair. I had Black people hair, and not like, we all have the same hair, but the typical hair that you think about. So it did help me to embrace my hair and to be proud of myself for who I am. But, other than that, growing up in the media, it wasn't that bad, just because I grew up in the 90s. So we had Nia Long and Sade and a young Beyonce and a whole bunch of Black women to look up to. So.
Okay. Anyone
So
else?
my experience was a little different, just because I'm a little older. My family, especially my father, was always, be careful of who you allow to send you the messages that you receive. So in our house, we had the one TV in the living room, and after school, after homework, we got to watch the after school special, which was always kind of cool. But then we sat down as a family and we would watch shows like the Bill Cosby Show. As I got a little older, we watched A Different World. I got to watch the Fat Albert Kids, and it was another show we watched, Electric Company, which was just, educational shows. That was really what TV was used for back then. It was entertainment, but it had to be something that taught you a message while you were being entertained. Other than that, I was forced to go outside. I never liked outside. I was forced to go out. But my father would always say, nobody you meet will ever be perfect. You can love a person and still not like their mistakes. And so as I got older, the Bill Cosby thing, it was like, well, I can still enjoy Bill Cosby with my son and with my friends and still not be condoning what he did as in his personal life. I can separate the artist from the person. And we are taught so often when it comes to us that we shouldn't do that and it's bad. But with everybody else, it seems to be okay. And I was like, well, look at this messaging. This is ridiculous. Or when it comes to our kids making mistakes or doing things that they should not be doing, like they can know better. And when they go to the criminal justice system, the punishments they get would be so much harsher. And somebody else could have just did the same exact thing and been of a Caucasian descent And it's been documented in studies that have been done. They would get sent to therapy, or they would be sent to like a group home so that they could get counseling and then be sent back home. And it was like, really, how is this fair? And so I love, you get tidbits. It's not too often, but every once in a while, somebody on a major network will go rogue and they will put it out there just plain as day. Like, this is what's going on in the world. Did you see this? And they'll have the names, they'll have the crime, they'll have the sentence. And they'll just be like, wow, I didn't see that, but I see it now. And I'll record it and write those names down and research it and be like, oh, we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about this. And to people be like, Yolanda, we get it. We don't want to talk about this no more. But it's like, that's where I come in at. That's my thing.
I think the brilliance, thank you, of having this panel and thinking about it, I wanted to have a cross section of Black women of various ages. And I think this is really good. I wanted to have someone also on the further end of age. But when we do this again in its more complete form, we'll make sure that we have that. But this has been great. You know, we're ranging in age from 30 something to probably 50 something. So this is good. This is good. So I'm going to ask, hearing these responses, I'm going to ask, and also hearkening back to what you talked about, Yolanda, with the hair. Beyonce's Lemonade references, and we'll talk about that a little bit more tomorrow. You better call Becky with good hair. Okay, because, you know, I think we're aware of what Jay-Z did to prompt this this whole thing that she came forward with. So with that being said, her little sister Solange said, don't touch my hair. So who wants to elaborate on that very declarative statement that every Black girl will say, don't touch my hair?
Don't touch it. I would love to comment on that, especially coming from the corporate space. Mm-hmm. So I've changed my hair all the time. As Black women, we know some of us, we wear different weaves, we wear braids, we wear our natural hair, we straighten it. I do it all. And I often have to have the conversation with my fellow leaders about my hair. If I come in tomorrow and I have a lace front, I'm gonna have to talk to somebody about how, no, Sarah, my hair didn't grow 18 inches last night. You know, no, these braids weren't always there. You know, this conversation and then the touching. It's like, I'm not a pet, I'm not an animal. Don't just walk up to me and reach your hand out to touch my body without speaking to me. And, you know, I've gone so far as to have conversations with them, like, you know, like, if I just do this to you, you might, you know, like, what's happening? Because that's not a normal thing that we just reach out and touch each other's hair. Like, I understand the fascination in the sense that you don't see it in your home. It's not normal to you. And it's okay to have a conversation, but it's not okay to put people in a space where they feel like they're in a museum. And so that's where I kind of draw the line where it becomes irritating. Like, I've even had a leader once ask me if I felt like a different woman when I changed my hair. And so having the conversation with her of no, I'm still the same Black woman that you met yesterday. I don't have on a different persona. You know, there's nothing happening here except I changed my hair. And so I feel like a lot of times for us, when you're dealing with the beauty standard that, you know, the white beauty standard, oftentimes what is cool and what everybody's after is an African-American feature. But if an African-American person has it, it is deemed, you know, not appropriate. So if I'm, you know, like they were saying earlier, if I'm a Black girl and I have on my orange hair and I'm running, all of a sudden I'm diminished down to nothing because my hair is orange. That same celebrity white girl can come out with that hair and it's the coolest thing since hot bread. So it's like, how do we navigate that as Black women when being yourself is automatically penalized, even though everybody wants your lips, your hips, your buttocks, your hair color, your ability to change your appearance. But if you do it, it's wrong. And then I also just want to further add, as a fat Black woman, a lot of times you're facing a lot of negativity from even other Black women, and especially we know it for dark skin versus light skin kind of conversation. But for heavy versus slim, you're also often getting accosted with comments that are just microaggressions out of nowhere, people pushing off their own insecurities onto you. And so in my youth, I found that was a way that a lot of people sexualized me as a child. And then as an adult, I found it's a way that I get erased often, because to be a slender woman is the goal, to be a light-skinned woman is the goal, and I'm already striking out. So it's kind of hard to figure out, where do you fit in?
That's a very powerful statement, Alessandra, and it's very true. Very true.
I would like to leave just one small one.
Oh, I was about to say, I want to comment on that, being a light-skinned woman.
Okay. Yolanda and then Nancy.
I just want the world to know it is okay for you to ask to touch my hair, and it is also okay for me to say no. And as long as we all understand those two things, I'm okay.
Okay. All right. Nancy.
And here's where it shows the age difference, because it was not popular when I was young to be light-skinned or to have thick lips or a big butt. That was like totally out of the question.
Okay.
In fact, the little kids had a song they used to sing about me. My maiden name was Hagen. So they would say, Nancy Hagen, booty bagging, tell your mama she a farmer. Like, it was not popular at all. I felt ashamed of all of that. My skin color, my lips, my butt, everything. Until I got a teenager. And then it was kind of okay, because then the boys like me, the boys that they were looking at was not looking at me, because having a big butt was, come to find out, was a commodity as you got older. It was a good thing. So I just, with the whole hair thing, I think it's ridiculous that we have to get a law passed, the Crown Act.
Crown Act, yes.
Wear your own hair that grows out of your head.
Mm-hmm. That was my next question about the Crown Act. Mm-hmm.
I think that's a really bad thing. And I hate for people to take my hair. The difference, like, I guess when you look at age, you can see the difference in what some people are going through now and where we've been, those of us that are older. Because I can see a big difference now, because right now, back in the day, if somebody touched my hair, I'd be like, okay, I didn't like it, but I wouldn't say nothing, because you know what, you grew up to be taught to be quiet. And if a white person touch your hair, you just be quiet. Somebody touch my hair now, they're gonna get cussed clean out. Don't touch my hair without asking. I feel like I got the power to do that. I have a voice. Like, my voice has been held hostage all these years. And now I feel like I can speak up. And I can tell people, I don't like what you're doing at the job. I don't like that comment. Don't touch my hair. And no, this is not a booty pop. It's real. I was born with it.
Okay, Sister Nancy. Yes. Because, while all our experiences are somewhat different, they're all really the same. So when I was a little girl who had long hair, but I just happened to be brown skinned, okay? So my thing is, over the course of time, with me dealing with people as we do, we encounter people, our own people and other people. Oh, well, your nose is like a white person. You have long, pretty hair. You have this, you have that. You speak a certain way, which my mother and father wanted me to speak correctly. But because of my experiences, I can code switch at any moment. So in other words, if you come over my house, I might be talking to you in Ebonics, because, that's what you really naturally learn how to do. But, like I say, it's all different sometimes, but again, it's all the same. And that whole piece about skin tones and hair and butts and lips, you know, it's a very real thing in our community. But at the same time, I do know and am aware that in African culture, those things are things that are highly applauded, you know, or they used to be. I think even in some countries in Africa, the beauty aesthetic has changed somewhat, but it used to be that, you know, that was everything. So, Ms. Pam, do you have anything to say about any of that?
Well, I definitely had my own shared similar experiences. Hair was actually a big issue in my household growing up. Being adopted by white parents who didn't have a clue what to do or how to do my hair. They botched it very badly. Mm-hmm. And my mother actually received a large amount of criticism in the neighborhood that we lived in. It was predominantly Black neighborhood. And one person kind of took her aside and taught her how to cornrow my hair and press it. So I had the whole hot comb, burning my ear, blue magic experience. I don't know, but I did.
Yes.
I remember it very well, and probably still have a little dark on my ear from it. But nonetheless, we have got to also educate our younger generations to not even use the terminology of good hair and bad hair.
Yes.
It's all good hair, no matter how coarse or how relaxed it might be. Mm-hmm. Because even that can bring about levels of shame and contention about who one is during those things. So we fight with things like colorism within our race, but also hair. It's still a very significant issue. Mm-hmm. And then it also happens even with genders, with comments about, I'm not going to date a woman who has weave, or wears a wig or has eyelashes. I mean, it's just constant. I feel like we're fighting to just be who we want to be constantly. So just going back to self-love, and empowering each other, and whatever you choose to do or whoever you choose to be. If you want to snuffleupagus eyelashes, honey, flutter them on. If you want to wear your hair with a weave, do so. The versatility and the diversity we need to embrace, and we need to stop criticizing some of those expressions, true expressions, or even the creativity. It's art to me. It's art.
Well, that's what I was going to comment on and say. Culturally speaking, this whole thing about our hair and nails and body parts and all this stuff, a lot of this stuff is very congruent with our history and our culture and where we come from. And so the adornment that we see going on, it's a direct link to everything. I've always been fascinated by the fact that here we are transported to America.
Yes.
And generations and generations past, like, how do we still know how to cornrow? And how do we still do things that our foremothers did? Because I contend that it's in our DNA and it's just there. And there is some memory of that lingers on with us. So this whole adornment thing, although it could go from, just what we look at as basic, all the way to the runner that you referenced, I think it's just an affront on us, as Black women, And yes, that does speak to us not being able to just be who we are, because even within our own race, the confines of our own race, yes, we're critical. I admit it. You might say, hey, ooh, that's so ghetto, but
Yes. I'm so glad that you said that, because one thing that I feel is missing from the conversation is the topic of respectability politics.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of this, when our parents are telling us, don't speak up, or wear your hair a certain way, because like I remember the first time I went natural, my mom was not for it. she was not okay with it, and at the time I took it very personally, like, oh, she just doesn't want me to do what I want to do. But in all actuality, she just wanted to keep me safe. And so if the beauty standard is, for us to look as white as possible, for our hairs to be as straight as possible, then really what our parents are telling us is, when you go outside, I want you to come home. I want you to come home safe. I don't want you to run into a situation where someone attacks you or kills you because of your blackness, or because of your hair, or because of the way you chose to adorn yourself, or you chose to speak up for yourself. So even though we do sense it now as internal criticism within our community, it was born out of the sense of making sure that we made it home safely.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. That is a very...
comment on hair before we change subjects.
Go ahead.
Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
I just wanted to give some historical references about the whole hair thing. So I don't know if a lot of people are aware, and I have to share this because I just found this out, I want to say a couple years ago. But at one point in between slavery and the civil rights movement, well, I think it was during slavery too, we actually weren't allowed to wear our hair in certain regions. We had to cover our hair. So like Miss Mcgowa was saying, a lot of it is just simply trauma in our DNA. Us having to deal with being so different in a country that didn't want us here, even though some of us were already here. And so they did everything that they could to minimize our beauty. And I also want to say that the new generation, like my niece, the people that are still in high school and might have just graduated, they've actually done a great job with embracing their natural. Most of the kids I see are natural. So at least in that front, maybe not for my generation and older, but the ones younger than us, they've kind of started to get it right when it comes to their natural beauty. So I feel like even though we all have our struggles that we went through as kids, in present day society right now, I feel like Black people have came a long way when it comes to our relationship with our own hair.
Thank you, Emerald. I want to add something to that when you referenced head coverings. So actually in Africa, head coverings are now the vogue thing, but in ancient times, we had head coverings, I want to say, in Kemet, which is the real name for Egypt. And so the kings and queens had head coverings them that denoted their royalty and their status. Fast forward to New Orleans. I think that there was some kind of, I don't know if it's a law, but because we are who we are, we always are going to find a way to adorn ourselves. And so as a result, we took the art of head wrapping to to unknown heights. And so it became a problem in slavery because it was too beautiful. And so because it was too beautiful, then we, got denied the wearing of the head wraps at a certain point in New Orleans. I read about that. So, it's kind of like, wow, darned if we do, darned if we don't. So just a little piece of history. You can go look it up. It's there. All right. And that's part of this tangled mess. So, all right, moving forward.
And Miss Erica, I want to add one more thing that
Go
may be
ahead,
a little
Alessandra.
controversial, but
Go
I
ahead.
think that particular piece is also where some of the tension comes from between Black women and Black and white women.
Yes, ma'am.
Because we have a history where Black women were owned and they were serving the Black woman or the white woman as, you know, as nannies, as caretakers, as house cleaners, you know, whatever they desired. And you also had the instance that Black women were being raped constantly by their owners, which were the husbands of these white women. So just like right now, if you're walking down the street and your husband turns his head at someone else, it's going to strike a sense of anger in you. It's going to strike a sense of jealousy in you. And if we're being very honest as women, it's going to strike a sense of what is wrong with me that he's looking outside. So if you've got this constant, uh, almost like, I don't even know how you would say, he has a constant stable of women that he's looking at, and he's seeing all of this exotic, this kind of where this exotic things come from, of their hair and their hips and their lips. Now, as the wife, I'm put in a position where I'm competing with her. Now, if we're again being very honest, even in today's world, if you find out that your partner's with someone else, the predominant conversation is an argument between those women. And it's usually, what is it wrong with me? Is she bigger? Is she smaller? Does she have a better job? Is her hair longer? So as Black women and white women, we have a long history of comparing each other and being in positions of subservience and power that haven't worked themselves all the way out of our relationships.
That is a very true statement. And no matter how much we try to move forward in these relationships, on some levels, it doesn't matter because, you'll meet that, I don't know if they're rare, but you'll meet a person who is genuine, white woman. But then, there's always something that's usually there, that needs to be addressed. So
it kind of reminds me of, to add on to what she said, it reminds me, I don't know if everybody on the panel have seen it, but it's the show called Underground, where the master was sleeping, well, he was raping his slaves, but they had kind of gained like a rapport. So his bastard children got to be in the house. But basically the breakdown of everything kind of started because the wife was so jealous of the slaves. And when the slave master died, when he got killed by the slaves or whoever, I don't remember who killed him, she ended up selling her away from her kids. So I mean, I've always felt like that show and the just the whole their interactions, their conversations, everything, I always feel like it mirrored, maybe not as extreme, but it mirrored the relationship between Black women and white women.
Yes, I would tend to agree with you. And at the very end, when we're wrapping up on Sunday, there are going to be things that will be sent to you all, books and different things like that, and that will speak to a lot of this, and recommendations for shows that you really need to watch. I know a lot of times as Black people, we tend to want to shy away from our history. I know, people would say, not another slave movie, not another, whatever. But to me, and as a person who wanted to teach Black studies, those things are important to address, important to see, important to understand that all of that is what makes us who we are, but we are certainly not defined by it because we're here and we can make of our lives what we desire it to be. It's just that when we have this constant dichotomy of, just living and working and doing and being, but then there's also, like I said in the introduction, microaggressions and, common things coming at us that we have to deal with. it's like we don't get to fully be ourselves and be relaxed about it. So we're always, it's almost like having a panic button nearby that's being pushed, you know. So, you know, and that's all a part of this. And this is, you know, I'm glad that we were able to have this conversation. So now, next question is, how have stereotypes impacted you? Okay, so some of the descriptions regarding Black women that I know of, and these are just a few. She's loud. She's mad. She's aggressive. She's for lack of a better term, she's a bust down, or she's this, that, you know, she's not anything. So, what are your thoughts about that, these stereotypes?
I have many of those. One of the ones my ex-employer loved to use when describing me was, "You're not a team player." And every time she said that, she wanted me,
That's a big one, but go ahead.
Yeah, she wanted me to be like, "Oh, I'll change." And I was like, "No, I am a team player. I'm just not going to do the crazy stuff you're talking about. That is not my job."
And then you become the angry Black woman.
Well, she told me that too. I mean, in my evaluation, she actually said to me, this was a Caucasian lady, she said, "Your coworkers are actually afraid of you." And that seems to be a problem. And I looked at her, and I just looked at her. I didn't respond yet because I wanted to see where she was going. And then she eventually circled back to, "But I think that's just the weakness on their part, because I've never seen you like curse anybody out. I've never seen you yell at anybody or lose your temper." And so I was looking at her like, you perceive me, she was basically having a whole conversation by herself, because she then went on to say, "You've been here many years and I feel like I don't know you." Well, how is that my fault? Like, I know about you. Why don't you know me? And so now I'm just like, okay, I can hear it and just be like, okay, I'm not going to dignify that, because I feel like if you want to know me, all you have to do is ask. Ask me if I want to go out sometimes. Ask me what I'm doing for the weekend. I mean, if you ask, I'll typically tell you. But they want us to just always be the one to make the first move, always be the one to step out, always be the one to be inconvenienced. And I was like, no, I'm so sorry. That's not me. My father, no, that's not going to happen. And so that's my story.
Okay, Nancy, I need you to comment on this.
Well, I definitely feel the part about the coworkers, but sadly enough, my supervisor was Black.
Okay.
And she is mixed. She was mixed, and so she had a white mother. And that was one of the things that I got wrote up for, was scaring the other employees, and that I can't get along with anybody. But I got nominated for those 2 awards that I won by my coworkers. So that whole thing was so, I don't know. I told my the director, I'm like, I don't know, I'm not for sure which race she's siding with, but she's doing me wrong as a Black person. I'm thinking once we got somebody in there that we gonna have this sisterhood, but we don't always have that sisterhood because everybody ain't woke like I am. But that really threw me for a loop to get rolled up for scaring my coworkers. And I think because the older I got, I don't have a filter, and I don't care what you think about what I say. If it's the truth to me, I'm gonna say it, and I need you to digest it and go along with it. And you know, I'm angry a lot of times. I'm angry because I've been on the job for almost 10 years and can't move to another position. You know, I'm angry because a lot of stuff follow me, and I'm the Black reference for everything. Oh, do you think Black people want to do this? Do you think Black people got this? I don't know. I'm just one black person. I don't know what the whole race wants or looking for. You know, I can't, well, what do you think as a black person they're taking the statue down? I'm like, God, they need to take them down and step on them. They need to get some more stuff taken down. What do you think I think? There was a woman at my job. It was a show on Netflix about a witch, and she was black, and she would go back to slavery time. And the woman said, oh, that's kind of like a domestic violence relationship. I'm like, where's she going with this? And she was like, you know, where you keep going back. I'm like, who in their right mind wants to go back to slavery? Are you kidding? What is wrong with you? This is like you so misinformed. It's no way I don't know any black person that wants to go back to slavery, period. Well, I mean, we can't go back to where they ain't even over yet because we still in it. So, you know, I understand exactly where she's coming from when she said that. I am the angry black woman, but I feel like, you know what? I have a reason to be. Because the things that I have went through in jobs, when I was a police officer, I got pulled over on the side of the road. Me and my kids got put out the car because they claimed something was wrong with the plates, right? And I'm telling them, here's the thing from the Secretary of State, it's all been straightened out, like this, they took my car and towed it. And the next day I went to work and they was like, oh, your car's out there. You know, you're right. It was all okay. I'm like, it's not okay. He said, well, you shouldn't have told them that you was a police officer. I said, I'm trying to figure this out. This is a town of 50, maybe. Who don't know that I'm the only black female officer here if I never say it? But yet, here you are, you took my car and you left me and my kids out on the highway and you towed it. So the following day, when I got my car back, I put Mal's Police Department, where I work, are racist, all over my car and drove it into the parking lot of the police station and parked it. And he said, the chief said, now you can't do that, Nancy. I said, why I can't? That's my First Amendment right. I can say whatever I want to say. What y'all did to me the other day felt like racism, looked like racism. So if it looked like it and feel like it, then it is. Needless to say, I didn't work there much longer, but but that I feel that wholeheartedly about, especially about the angry black woman. I don't see why we don't have a reason. Give me a reason why we shouldn't be angry. All the things we've been through and still going through.
I think it's just really the assumption that in anything and everything, we're angry. If we make a statement about something that could be just an everyday run-of-the-mill thing, we're angry. I think we're always being analyzed incorrectly. So that is part of that. Does anyone else want to comment on these stereotypes or bring forward any observation with regard to that?
I do. Stereotypes have impacted me greatly because I feel like it's made me more hyper vigilant to be black, if that makes sense. Like I'm not the type. Me personally, I don't have the type of personality where I'm super loud or nothing like that. But I've always just been very outspoken in defense of myself. I've always stood up for myself. Once I reached a certain age, so basically, just like Nancy said, I mean, it just makes you more angry. Like, now I am the angry black woman. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, it's like your mind is playing tricks on you all the time because you don't want to feed into a stereotype, but you also don't want to not be yourself. We have emotions, we have feelings just like everybody else. If we want to be mad, we can be mad. If we want to be happy, sad, etc., we can do that. So that's always been my outlook. But like I said, it's still it bothers me a lot because I know so many different Black women. I know so many different type of Black women. Like Nancy said, we're not all the same. Just because you know me, don't mean you know Alessandria, or Nancy, or and so on and so forth. So I just feel like it makes me mad, honestly. I don't like, I mean, I know stereotypes are made naturally, but most of them I don't fit, you know? And so I feel like recently I was in nail school, and I'm just gonna tell a short story. And we were supposed to do a group project, and we were supposed to make an inspiration board. So every day when we came to class, we would see the board and we would get inspired to keep going. And me, you know, I'm very creative. So I was excited. I'm like, yeah, you know, everybody else in the class was like, I'm not creative. I think it was one other person that said that they were. So I was excited, like, okay, we get to do a project. I've never really had problems with group projects because I usually end up doing all the work, honestly, or being the leader, because, you know, when you're growing up, everybody knows you, so they know who should lead, right? So we get to Dollar Tree on our lunch break, and she gave the money to one girl who happened to be an elementary teacher formerly. And she kind of just took over, and I kept coming. I think I gave them like 15 suggestions maybe. And they straight up ignored me. And I've never been through anything like that ever in my life. I had to swallow my pride. My feelings was hurt. I was pissed off. Honestly, I was really mad because like I kept compromising and I wasn't getting the same thing. And I honestly only felt like that was happening because I was Black. And so we had to write a paper about our experience, and I told the truth. You know, as a Black woman, I don't shy away from race, and I told them that that's exactly what I felt like, you know, what was going on. So I just feel like because of stereotypes, it's made me more vigilant in being myself. It's made me accept myself more, but it's also made me aware of myself more because I tend to be more quiet to myself. I feel like people just come up with stuff. They just make up stuff to explain me, especially when it comes to other races. So I don't like, you know, the moniker of aggressive and all that stuff. And I just feel like it's like if somebody says, "Are you mad?" You're mad, and then you're like, "No, I'm not mad." But then you become mad because they keep telling you you're mad. It's all the same. But on the opposite end, much like Alessandria mentioned, I did grow up. I wasn't necessarily fat because I played sports, but I was always thick. I was always curvy, had a booty, thighs, etc. So I dealt with a lot of like older Black women sexualizing me and men, like, but namely it'd be like the mamas. They would always think that I was the fast friend, which I was not at all. They always thought that I was up to no good, wanted to be around boys. When I did have a little boyfriend in high school, you know, it was always the feeling of she's fat, she's this, whatever. So I feel like sometimes it's not just the outside community that stereotypes people. I feel like there's like this obsession of curvy little girls. And unfortunately, sometimes, even though I was able to stay innocent for the most part, a lot of times people just feel like you're just out there doing whatever, doing your thing, just living life. And it's like, no, I'm a person too, just like you. I'm still a little kid, you know? So I've got it from both ends, unfortunately.
Thank you, Emerald.
May I
Anyone?
add
Yes.
one
Yes.
stereotype? Is everybody doesn't eat chicken and watermelon. That is our complexion and hue. And just that incident that happened with IKEA store, you know, the menu having fried chicken and watermelon in celebration of Juneteenth. I would have found that quite offensive. And I just think it's just one of those things. Don't make such blatant assumptions just because I am a Black or African-American woman that I automatically want to eat a piece of fried chicken and have a slice of watermelon. I don't like watermelon, but people make these stereotypical, not just us, but we get stereotyped for such things.
Right.
Things as it regards to food, as it regards to body, as it regards to demeanor, mood, personality.
I would also add the things you have and how you carry yourself. Sometimes it always seems to be a surprise to everyone else. Or they come to your home. Oh, you have such a beautiful home. You know, like they're really shocked, and it wouldn't it wouldn't matter if I had like a little apartment because because I was raised a certain way. And as you can see behind me, you see both of my great grandmothers who were both divas in their own rights. I was always going to be like this, as I am. I was always going to like fashion, and I was always wanting going to have a clean home, for the most part. Things get out of order, but you go and do the work to get things back in order. And so, these ideas that persist about, Black women, some of them are within in the context of our own people, but, that's one thing to deal with. But then, our counterparts, so I've dealt with stuff like, oh, she's special because she's so well read. And she's this and she's that, as if to say, none of my other Black sisters are, which is not true. So, we face a lot of different things. Like I said, these microaggressions and all these different things on a daily basis. And while we fight to stand as who we are, there's another situation that I would like to offer where on my job, the support staff, I'm a librarian, so I'm part of the support staff. And, for many years, a lot of us have felt like, oh, things could be a lot better for us. So much so that, different things occurred and we felt like we need to empower ourselves. So we decided to have a union, but I was asked to be a part of the negotiating team to form this union, but I was asked and brought on late in the game. And so I can remember one particular session that occurred where I was just sitting, and listening to everything that was being presented because I'm a thinker. So I don't often just spout, my opinions right away. I sit back and listen to things. So as I was listening, every time, the negotiation materials and things were being talked about, I'm sitting there listening, and this person, this white lady, kept looking at me, deeply concerned, and then she said, "Are you mad?" And I told her no, but she kept asking me that. And so eventually I told her, I said, you really need to understand that doing that to me fosters that whole thing about Black women being angry. I said, I'm sitting here listening and taking in the information so that when it comes to me being able to be a viable part of this team, I'll be able to comment and give wise counsel. So yeah, I'm thinking, I'm very serious, but I'm not angry. I said, so you got to stop doing that to me. So, once I said that to her and the other person, then, it became a little bit clearer for them. So, these stereotypes, they're always probably going to exist. But as we progress, and really we're shattering all of those things. We've shattered a lot of it, to say that we're this And we prove that we're not that because we excel and we achieve. So with that being said, I'm going to conclude the comments on that question. And I believe it was Pam who brought up self-care. So I have a question here that I wanted to ask about care and caregiving. Many times, you know, the Black woman, and I can relate this to career-wise because, you know, I'm in a school district and, you know, there's a thought that, you know, we relate better to our children. And so I started calling it the Black Mammy syndrome. You know, go get her. She can take care of everything. You know, so I call that the Black Mammy syndrome. So, you know, in relation to caring for others and caregiving, and even with that sort of a thing that happens, what does that look like to you? You know, because, you know, we have Big Mama and we have Mammy. Mammy from the plantation, Big Mama. So there's a dichotomy there about, you know, what we do as Black women. So Mammy had to be on call. She had to bathe, dress, do the hair, just constantly be there to serve. And Big Mama, on the other hand, had to serve, but in a different light. Big Mama's over here serving her family. So then what happens is you look at that extreme on the one end, and then you see Big Mama on this end, but you know that this has affected us greatly as Black women, because when do we care for ourselves? So I'm gonna ask the question, what does self-care look like for you?
I'm going to say it looks difficult for most Black women because we still in that same slavery mentality of we got to take care of everything. We got to take on everything. We got to care about everything. And we are always last on the list. So I've done that for years, but you know, I got more woker and I have to look out for me. I got to love me first because it's like being on an airplane and it's about to crash. If I don't put my mask on first and I put the mask on my kids, but I pass out before I even get them on there, then I've helped nobody. But if I put the mask on first and then I reach over and put it on my kids, then I've helped the whole family. We have to, it's hard to come out of that because I feel so, it's hard for me to tell people no. It's hard for me to not help somebody. It's hard for me not to take no kid in my house or is something going on. I just don't know how. It was so hard to get to the point where I'm at now where I can barely squeak out a no because I feel like it's my responsibility and that needs to go on my back to care for everybody.
So that reminds me of Erykah Badu and her song, "Bag lady, you gon' hurt yourself, toting all them bags like that." Right? You relate. So that was the point of me asking that. So Pam, I'm just gonna say is also my soror. So Pam, what do you have to say about this? Especially in the field that you're in.
Yeah, I so have been on both ends of the spectrum, you know, providing care, but also in need of care due to the fact that I will do and do and do and do and help and help and help and help and then exhaust myself. Self-care is absolutely imperative. Saying no, as Nancy mentioned, I had that written down while when you first posed the question and talked about.
Because don't we have to tell ourselves? We have to say no. Sometimes you literally have to say that, but all at the same time, there's this whole thing going on. Well, yeah.
It's a part of that self-love piece that needs to take place, that if I'm going to be helpful to anybody else, I've got to take care of myself. It's like the fuel that I need in order to keep going is taking care of me, however I need to do it, whether it's eating right or, being more self-disciplined. But I've got to do those things. And if I don't do those things, then the wear and tear and the repercussions of that wear and tear is going to be insurmountable and overwhelming. I'm going to be exhausted and I'm going to be irritable, or I'm not going to be as helpful as I possibly can.
Right.
Gotta utter those words, no, and know that we're giving it with love, and that if the person loves us back, they'll accept that no.
Right. So, with that being said, what does self-care look like for the rest of you?
Well, a good friend of mine termed the word bubulation.
Bubulation?
So, yes. And so for me, I start each day with a 2 to 3 hour bubble bath. That's how I start my day. I have the music going. And from that point on, the rest of the day, I can tolerate. Okay. That's just something I do for myself. Every so often, if the mood hits me, I'll make a healthy smoothie. And that's just something I do for me. I do it quite often. But I start every day with the bubble bath, and it usually lasts a long time. So I know. Okay. I hope we don't ever have a drought, because I may be in trouble, but right now we have plenty of water.
Okay. Praise God for that. Alessandra, what does self-care look like for you? Thank you, Yolanda.
So self-care for me right now is extremely serious and very guarded. Just speaking, being very transparent, when I started out as a manager within healthcare, a lot of these situations that you all described, where you were getting written up and you were, getting labeled with these terms, I went through the exact same thing, every facility that I went into that. And by the time I hit the third one, I started questioning myself. And I had a sincere case of imposter syndrome, where I just started to wonder, what it is about me that I don't get along with people. What is it about me that they never accept me in these spaces? Mm-hmm. And it led to a year-long depression. And the way that I knew that things were over the line was, like, as you guys said, we just take on more and more responsibility. I knew that things were in trouble when I couldn't get up anymore. I was struggling to get up to get to work. I was laying in bed and just having these hours long, just going back and forth, like, okay, just put on your pants, just get your shirt. Like, you do this. This is what you do. And I just could not understand what was happening. I had never been in a situation before like that. And so after having that breakdown and going into therapy for the first time, getting a true understanding that not only am I suffering from PTSD right now, but I also am suffering from that from, events that have happened in the past. And so I think for Black women especially, and I mean Black people on the whole, I just want them to become more familiar with PTSD, with complex PTSD, with childhood PTSD, and how that shows up in our lives. Because there's certain things that we say, like, oh, people just need to stop drinking, or you just need to stop eating so much, or you just need to get up and work out. And it's that just word that makes it seem like it's a small act. But self-care is very difficult when you're in a space where you don't love yourself and you can't see anything good about what's going on in the world. So certain things are not just, nice to do. Like, that bubble bath is necessary. She needs that. That's not optional. Going outside and getting sunlight, eating veggies, getting water in, doing a workout, journaling, yoga, biking, whatever it is for you. And then also for me, noticing when I am using coping mechanisms, Maybe I'm agitated and I'm frustrated, so now I'm shutting down. I don't want to talk anymore. That kind of stuff is normalized for us because we go through so much trauma, but it's actually, a sign that we do need to seek some help. And that can look different. Like Ms. Mcgowa said earlier, it could be pastoral care. It could be talking with a girlfriend. One of the biggest things that helped me during that period of depression was that they placed me in an all Black female therapy group. And I can say for every single one of us, it was the first time that we sat down in that space and we just said, this isn't okay. It's not okay that even when I'm not okay, they still call me and ask me for help. And, so as Black women, I use just to, but you have to make it a priority to center yourself, because as you can see, no one is going to do that for you.
All right. That's it in a nutshell. And one of our attendees wrote, it's called racial battle fatigue. Dr. Crystal Shelby Caffey said that is racial battle fatigue. And I had a little bit of joke. I have renamed PTSD to PSTD, post-slavery traumatic disorder. Okay. And that's what I had been saying this is, but because like I said, I kid you not, this is in our DNA, whether, people want to acknowledge these things or not, it's there. I think we have a memory of it. And then because we live it and we keep going through this stuff and we keep being given examples of, what is felt about us negatively, then yeah, I contend that it is there. So, all right. I think we've been having a great dialogue or discussion thus far. I want to ask you, what feelings or thoughts or reflections are you holding within yourself at this moment in terms of you, your family, and the community at large? You could use any of that or all of that.
The first word that came to my mind was accountability. I want to hold a space of accountability for us as Black women to own our own agency, our authority, to take care of ourselves. Mm-hmm. But I also want to hold a space of accountability for our Black men, for our allies, to also uplift and protect Black women. And that right now is really things that need to be tangible, not just saying we support you, but real physical ways that we can support each other. It gives me hope that we have conversations like this. But I think we've all described that we're having these kind of conversations because pervasively, this is the new. Black women having a platform like this to just talk about what's happening to us and not having to take care of anyone else's identity is a really big conversation.
Thank you, Alessandra. Anyone else?
I think she hit it right on the money. So what I say is Black folks is trending now. We are trending and we need to take advantage of this opportunity while everybody's looking at us and trying to help us. We are trending right now. And that means economically. Mm-hmm. I had a young man on one of the virtual summits we do. Mm-hmm. And he said something so profound that I ain't got it out of my head. So I'm almost about to put it into fruition what he said. He said, we grow up and we're taught to go to school to get the good job. We're never taught to be the job. So in order for me to get out of a toxic workplace or where I don't feel like I'm my value of the things I do is taken seriously, I need to be that job. I went to get that degree and I'm making just a little bit more than a McDonald's worker now. So, and then I got to go through all the stuff I'm going through. But if I work for them, if I do that for me, if I work for me as hard as I do for that job, I can be that job. I can be that opportunity. I can open the door and let another Black woman in so we can work in an environment that is safe and comfortable and not have to go with people touching your hair, people writing you up, oh, you the angry Black lady. I think that we're trending. There's all kind of grants and opportunities out here, and we need to be taking advantage of it. Not only that, but voting, like someone said at the beginning, and getting in office so we can help change the laws. Even getting the people that we know who say voting don't count. It don't count if you don't do it. But if you do it, it does. We have always been the deciding factor in voting, whether people realize it or not. Even when we were slaves, the electoral college comes from them counting slaves as 3/4 of a person. And that's how they could win an election with us. This past election, we won that. We got out and we vote, and we need to continue to vote. Not just vote, but start running for office in some of these places.
Exactly. And this speaks, it goes back to my introductory piece when I talked about us creating spaces and creating our own so that we could do the things and have the opportunity, I guess you would say more succinctly, to do the things that we would like to do and to be taken seriously, and at the same time, making our mark in the world. So yeah, this is good stuff. So we've come to almost the end here. So now that you've shared your thoughts and feelings regarding, the questions that you have been asked, I asked you in preparation for this evening to choose a picture of a woman or women in your family who have instilled in you qualities that exemplify who you are as a person, meaning they've made an impact in your life and they've helped to shape you as a Black woman that you are. So this is like the full picture of who and what she is and to you, or was to you, because she might be deceased. So it's my hope that this will aid in revealing to the community your humanity and the fact that you too live and breathe and love and nurture and work and maintain. Okay, so I just wanted to add that too often stereotypes exist regarding Black women. And if this helps one white woman, or even some of us in the community to understand, then we have succeeded. So at this point, I don't know in what order your pictures will be displayed, but I'm going to start by just moving over a little bit because I decided that I would like to share this with you. So behind me are, as I told you all before we started, both of my great grandmothers, my mother's grandmother, my dad's grandmother. So Ollie Mae Collins of Savannah, Georgia, and Addie Polk of Louisiana. Okay, those were the two women who had a very dynamic impact upon me. And as I was speaking to my aunt about this and doing this, I asked her the question, about grandmothers. I said, Auntie, and she knew that I was doing this. I said, Auntie, while every grandmother is precious, Black grandmothers are legendary. Do you think that's inflammatory? Do you think that's for real? And this is what my Aunt Carolyn said. She said, that's just true. That was her reaction, right? She said, that's just true. She is the bone that holds up the bone. grandmothers carry the culture. And so, not to take away from Black motherhood, which is a learning period. That's how she described it to me. So I feel that this prepares you for your future role as a grandmother, and that grandmothers are indeed quite a special lot of women. So, and then I'll get to the aunties in a minute. But Miss Jennifer, if you will put the first picture up, and then when she displays that first picture, you'll know who it is in correlation to you, and go ahead and comment on this. So Nancy.
Yes, these two, that's me in the middle, but that's my youngest sister on my other side and my oldest sister. My oldest sister, I wouldn't be where I was today if it wasn't for her. My mother suffered from mental health issues. And back then, they didn't really know what to do for her or how to help her. They called it a nervous breakdown. Mm-hmm. But actually, later on, it was described as both bipolar and schizophrenia. Mm-hmm. So, but my sister took over the mother role. And when I say this woman, every time I seen her, because I dropped out of high school, I had a baby, and then I had another baby. And I had no plans on doing nothing else but being with these babies and not getting my education or doing something. And so, and I told her, well, I got a job. You know, I'm working at McDonald's. And she said, are you kidding me? Is that where you want to be for the rest of your life, wiping tables? No, you got to go back and get your high school diploma. Mm-hmm. So every time I seen her, even if I ducked and dodged her, she still would wait. Okay. And tell me, hey, what you doing? Have you signed up for school yet? As you working on getting that GED? And so just to shut her up, I finally went to class. I signed up for the class. I took the class, and they said on the first day, go take the test and see where you at. And then that's the part we'll work on. So I'm like, okay, I went and took the test. And I got back and I got the results back, and I'm just opening the envelope. I don't think nothing of it. They said, oh, you passed. I'm like, what? I passed. And so when I went for the GED, I really made a dedication to my sister because she never stopped trying to get me there. And when she got off the GED, she got on a diploma, getting a degree, I mean. Mm-hmm. And so I really want to thank her. She is the reason why I am the person I am today, because she instilled that I wasn't going to be that statistic that they usually say, oh, well, you're a teenage mom and you dropped out and that's the end of your life. I'm not that statistic. I'm the overcomer. I'm the defeater of that statistic. Because not only do I got one degree, I got a couple of degrees, you know, and my high school diploma, and I do a lot in the community right now. I would never have been anywhere close to that if it wasn't for this lady.
All right. Thank you, Nancy. And
well, so, that's my mom.
Okay. Sister
that is her. And as you can see, she was just as sassy as she wanted to be. And she had a voice and she was not afraid to use it anytime, anywhere, anyhow. So from my mom, and I told you she never did the baby talk. We always did the real talk. So from her, I learned I had a voice and I learned how to use it. I also learned the things she didn't want me to learn because we fought a lot. We disagreed often. And so my mom would do things like, why are you going across the seas? That's just a waste of money. It's my money though, Mom. I'm making memories. It's okay. But it was something she never did, so she never understood. You know, she graduated high school, but that's as far as she went. So when I went to college, she was like, well, what you going to college for? Why you just can't get married and have kids like everybody else? Because I'm better than that, Mom. I don't need to do that. That's not my life. That's not what I want. And so that's why I have the multiple degrees, because she was just like, you're just wasting time. And I was like, but it's my time. It's my life. When I bought the house, she was like, "Oh, you got that job now. You're gonna buy a house. What if you lose that job? And I lose the house now? Guess what? I bought the first one. I can buy a second one. It's okay." And so she was just like, "You just doing things out of order." And I was like, "But it's my order. And who gave you the right to make the order for my life?" So, I mean, that was just our relationship. And it was like, you know, she didn't live long enough to be like, "You know what? I'm sorry. And I like your order." But it was okay because I knew she loved me deep down and I knew she wanted the best for me. And so because of her, you got me.
Well, how wonderful. We all come from something, and so it's beautiful to have remembrances like that. Okay. Is this Alessandra?
Yes, this is my grandmother. So this is my grandmother, Dorothy Nicholson, in the white t-shirt, and then my great aunt, Maddie Gilbert, in the yellow, and she actually passed away this year. My grandmother, God bless, is still with us. But both of these ladies were definitely instrumental in upholding an image for all of the other Black women that were in my life, which I also spent a great deal of time with. And my grandmother, really, I think it reminds me of that beginning of Sojourner saying, "Ain't I a woman?" Because she did everything, you know, on top of raising children and helping my grandfather run a farm and a garden. So she was business savvy, but she also was a great community leader in the sense that everybody knew her and she dealt with everyone. She provided care for so many different community children. And so I really attribute my management career to her, because I feel like all of the emotional intelligence that I gained in navigating different groups and providing resources and being able to, you know, calm down temper tantrums and do negotiations, being able to deal with billing and all this fun stuff, it's all lessons that I learned by her side. So I got skills that no one, you know, would ever ask me for. Like, I can help you skin your fish and take your scales off, and I can do all that for you. But also, I think it's just that great sense of motherhood, which I think in this kind of patriarchal society gets dumbed down to say, when we say mother, we think of only care as something that you get and then you go off on your way. But the way that we manage each other, the way that we help grow each other is really, in essence, motherhood. And so if you're a great mother to so many, you're going to pass down those knowledge and that instruments to your siblings, to your children. So I just truly credit her with getting me ready for the world. And like Yolanda was saying, when I took off, because I left home on my own, I drove out to California. And when I took off, my grandmother was hesitant, but I think she and I both connect in the sense that she knows that I'm infinitely capable. And I know that I'm infinitely capable because she instilled that in me. So I may be apprehensive about something, but I know I can get it done because Dorothy Nicholson got it done.
That's that I'm every woman.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you all. So, Emerald, I don't know if you had a picture, but did you want to speak on this or say anything right here?
You didn't ask me for a picture, but my person would be mom, because much like Miss Yolanda, we did butt heads, because I just wanted to be a tomboy growing up. I mean, not wanted to be, I just wanted to run around with my hair sticking up and just, "Hi, I'm here," you know? And so it's funny now, but I remember freshman year of high school, my mom would be like, what are you wearing? Like, why are you trying to go out the door looking like this? And so, I mean, I'm a very sensitive person, so it was hard to accept. It's still hard to accept some of the things she says to me, but it's always out of love. She's helped me develop into a more polished, very polished woman. I carry myself a lot like her to a certain extent, because that was my example. The very militant, activist, proactive, pro-Black side of me really came from her. A lot of people, you know, they love my dad, so they just automatically try to put all of the characteristics that they feel like are good of me and my siblings onto him. But I just feel like people be sleep on my mom, and I just be having to tell them like, no, actually, I got this from her. Growing up, if I had problems in school, she would always come. She would be the parent to stand up for me, and always made sure that I was being treated right. So, I mean, the love of fashion, my creativity, like literally my face. So many things come from my mom. So she definitely has helped me to become a really good woman. I'm still a work in progress, but I am very proud of myself because a lot of the things I do and say remind me of my mom. So that's my person.
All righty, thank you. And Pam, what would you like to share?
Well, I don't have a picture, and I also I don't have a recollection of an African American or Black woman in my life growing up that was instrumental in paving a path for me. There are bits and pieces of individuals in my neighborhood who wrapped their arms around me and helped me see a vision of what the epitome of being an awesome Black woman is, but they're a collective group of women and not just one person. It really wasn't until I got to college that I had those kinds of experiences. And the reason that I decided to join the illustrious sorority I decided to join, but it had more to do with what I really relished in believing as being greatness as far as African American women, from the founders all the way through, that you could just see so many people that have those great qualities and characteristics. And because I just didn't grow up in a household with any of that. The only Black person was the person I saw in the mirror. So, and maybe a few teachers, but none that I can name that really stood out. Was actually rather shy, believe it or not, and harbored quite a bit of I don't know, alienation. I just kind of stayed in my own shell.
So you really had to learn about your identity.
I did.
A Black person, a Black woman. So, and might I say that on this evening, I just want to say that you are a phenomenal one who gives and loves. And so you stepped into that role and you are exhibiting that wonderfully. So, so real quick, I want to read you this excerpt from the Inquirer. It says, for many in the Black community, motherhood extends far beyond the nuclear family and biological ties. So this is about the aunties. It says, Black aunts are often the backbone of their community, especially in the context of social values and responsibilities. However, there's no specific call for appreciation for these women. So we come out of a tradition where we expand the family system well beyond our blood relatives. And I think sometimes for white people, they kind of don't get that and they don't understand. We might be at work and somebody might call me mother, or somebody might call me, oh, that's my cousin, and that's my sister, but it's only because that's how we are as, a group of people. So that's where they contend Auntie Renee or Aunt Keisha, when in fact, she may just be your mother's choir mate or your mother's best friend. But then, they become an unofficial aunt. So officially, that's an extension of the family. So then they talk about the Black aunt walking the precipice of being a friend and elder. She's typically, they describe her as less strict than a parent, but there's more formality in your relationship. And I find that to be true with my auntie. Although my auntie can be like a big sister, there are still, you know, there's still that respect for her being an elder. And I'm not going to just say and do things, to disrespect her. So the idea of all of this, is really not a new thing. This concept is based culturally in our beginnings, our ancient beginnings too. So we've evolved and we went through things. And now to be called an auntie is a badge of honor, So like back in slavery days, it was like auntie. That's Amy, auntie. So those were common kind of terms that were placed as labels upon Black women, but they were more derogatory. But now, as we often do, we flipped it. So to be an auntie is to be something of benefit, of worth, of class. This is why Michelle Obama has been called Auntie Michelle. You notice that we do that. So we pick, what we look at in terms of being Black excellence. And we say, oh, we want to align ourselves with that. So there's Auntie Michelle. Look at her. They didn't know that we were so dynamic. They didn't know that we were so chill. They didn't know that, we had a lot going on. We're complex, So I just want to say in conclusion, that changing attitudes and behaviors changes lives and relationships. So you shared with us your women of influence, and before I close, I want to give many thanks to Dr. Linda J. Flowers. I would say Dr. Flowers is one of those aunties in our community. And Dr. Flowers, if she sees something in you that you may not even see, or that she knows is there, she's going to push you forward and encourage you. Okay, so I want to thank her because she's been a part of my life for a long time. And so she is the president of the Carbondale Branch of NAACP, and just thank her for encouraging me, along the way, and believing that I could write a grant and I could do this or that. So I'm grateful to her. Okay. And I want to thank Miss Jennifer Robertson, our facilitator of our Zoom. She is the adult librarian who provides services for the Carbondale Public Library. She and the director, Diana Sussman, have provided a wealth of experience and knowledge and have been assisting us within the community with their skills. But I want to say, we're at the door. And so, there are great friendships in the making, because these two women have gone, I feel like, above and beyond, So they're with us, and I believe that they stand with us. And so I just want to thank Jennifer on this evening. With all that has been going on, she just has the best attitude, and she's just someone, her and Diana, who you just know, is something special about them, and they're superseding, what they have to do and working beyond that to make things happen. And so before we sign off, before we sign off, I want to thank Alessandra, Pamela, Yolanda, Emerald, Nancy. Thank you all. And I'm looking forward to what you're going to be responding to tomorrow evening. And I thank you for just agreeing to be a part of this it has made this a very momentous and memorable occasion. So thank you, ladies, and enjoy the rest of your evening. But before we go, we do have like 5 to 10 minutes for a Q&A, and we do have a Q&A box below. So if there are any in attendance, those of you who are watching, if you would like to ask a question of any of our panelists, now is the time to do so. And you could type your question in the question box, the Q&A box. So it looks like we do not have any questions for our panelists. So with that, I am going to bid you a good evening and thank you for joining us on this evening. Blessings and love.